Our gut is a rather remarkable place. It's where almost all of our digestion takes place, as well as nutrient and water absorption. But we're not doing it alone. On average, there's about 3 pounds of bacteria in our gut that are helping us out. We eat food, it goes to the stomach and is broken down and moves into the intestine. Some of that broken down food gets eaten by the bacteria, broken down further, and then we absorb it. It's one of the most beautiful things in life, and it happens in perhaps the most disgusting place in the human body. But there are some bacteria that didn't get the memo about us living well together. And sometimes those bacteria can make its way into our gut, and then bad things happen. One of those bacteria infects almost 500,000 people every year. It's a nasty little bugger named Clostridium difficile. And that's the one we're going to be taking a look at today, because in the beautiful symphony that is the human body, CDiff can really strike a brown note.
Hold on to your butts.
Clostridium difficile, or CDiff for short, is a bacteria that can come to live in our gut for reasons we'll get into later. Just know it's not supposed to be there, which is odd since it's everywhere else in the water, the soil, and the air. It's like American Express. It's everywhere you want to be. And just like of American Express, it's annoying, comes with a high price, and nobody wants to deal with it. Also, it might kill you. Of the 500,000 infections that happen annually, the CDC estimates about 29,000 people die within the first 30 days. I'm not sure if the American Express comparison continues here, but I've read enough dystopian future novels to know not to rule it out completely. The problem with C. diff is that instead of helping us break down our food, it drops a deuce of toxins right into our gut, namely Clostridium difficile toxin A and Clostridium difficile toxin B. No points for the naming scheme, but at least it's something we can pronounce and understand what it is when we read it. And our bodies really do not like these toxins. Forget about IBS and Crohn's disease. It's C. diff that takes the proverbial chocolate cake. Now, these toxins can really irritate the crap out of your colon, causing inflammation, a condition known as colitis. Now, your colon doesn't want to be irritated, so it tries to rush the whole digestion process along so it can kick out whatever it is that's causing the inflammation, which is completely understandable. Unfortunately, things moving along means that nutrients and vitamins and water, don't forget about the water, aren't getting reabsorbed the way they should be. And of course, the end result of a speedy colon that's loaded down with water is... I knew that clip was coming and I still wasn't ready for it.
A few moments later.
Mild to moderate symptoms include watery diarrhea 3 times a day for 2 days or more with mild abdominal cramping. Gee, I wonder why. But severe cases can see watery diarrhea 10 to 20 times a day, and you're never gonna forget that smell. There's weight loss, fever, a chance of a swollen abdomen, and dehydration. In extreme cases, the dehydration could be so severe, you'll actually end up with kidney damage or just straight out kidney failure. You could also get a condition called toxic megacolon, where your colon is so inflamed it swells up to the point where nothing can pass through, not even gas. Left untreated, your colon has the chance to rupture, and as far as the human body is concerned, rupturing is never a good outcome. And any of these conditions severe enough left untreated could lead to a mild case of death. So, you know, no pressure. No pun intended. Thank you. Unfortunately, all of this purging doesn't actually get rid of the C. diff. It can cling to the insides of your intestines, it reproduces quickly, and it reproduces through the use of spores. Spores are basically the everlasting gobstoppers of the world. They're rugged, resistant to stomach acid, they cling to everything, they can survive almost indefinitely in almost every environment in the world, and they only activate or spread more bacteria when the environment is just right. This makes special survival almost guaranteed, and as spores can exit the body with feces, it makes it easy to colonize new environments. Say, like you, for example. Now, under normal circumstances, a person might actually have C. diff but never show any signs, because that 3 pounds of bacteria that we have in our gut is usually enough to keep C. diff in check. But if something were to happen to that flora, say somebody goes on a broad spectrum antibiotic for a different infection like pneumonia or a UTI, the balance would be thrown off because the broad spectrum antibiotics would wipe out some of our natural colony, and then C. diff would be allowed to flourish, which means disaster. Disaster. Are you seriously not going to give me... Okay, thank you. It's the little victories. Now, generally speaking, if you've had diarrhea for a couple of days and go to see the doctor about it, they're probably not going to check you for CDiff, unless you've had antibiotics within the last 2 months, in which case, that's going to be one of the first things that they check for. To diagnose C. diff, there are several tests, but the most reliable is a polymerase chain reaction test, which looks for a specific gene in C. diff's B toxin. And this, of course, requires a stool sample because, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. When it comes to a cure, C. diff is a little wishy-washy on the whole thing. It can go away on its own, and that depends primarily on the person and their natural microbiota, but if symptoms are already present, it's best to seek treatment. Often the best we can do is treat the C. diff and hope that curing it is a happy accident. The primary treatment of C. diff is replacing fluids and electrolytes and keeping a person in a very, very sterile environment. And if the case is severe enough, we might use antibiotics, which is kind of ironic, since C. diff is resistant to broad-spectrum antibiotics. Narrow-spectrum antibiotics like vancomycin and flagyl actually have a pretty decent track record. With a little luck, these antibiotics will cure C. diff, or at the very least, weaken it to the point where our natural microbiota can once again keep it in check. Again, this all depends highly on the person's immune system and their natural microbiota, plus the resistance of antibiotics that that particular strain of C. diff might have. But there is a chance that once you're a carrier, you're always going to be a carrier. Now, there is a newer treatment that's not yet approved by the FDA, but is still showing to be over 90% effective in some small studies. It's called a fecal microbiota transplantation. A poo transplant. And no, I'm not making that up. A fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT, is when medical professionals take poo from a poo donor and put it into your colon. It's the medical version of a bag of poo, a blender, and a turkey baster. No, I didn't have to provide the visuals, but I did it for your benefit. Science! The idea is that a healthy sample, when introduced into your environment, it will help reset your natural microbiota and help you get the C. diff under control or even eliminated. And remember, this has been shown in small studies to be over 90% effective. But if the turkey baster seems like too much of a pain in the ass for you, there has been an advancement. A poo pill. It does the same exact thing as the FMT, except it goes in the other way, and you have to eat a poo pill. I swear I'm not trying to make jokes here, but this writes itself. Hey, to most people this might sound a little extreme, or at least a bit unsavory. And in this case, I do believe that we could say that the best cure is prevention. So the question we haven't asked yet is, how do you get C. diff? Ow. You eat poo spores. Spores come out with feces, and with watery discharges, it can get everywhere. The bed, the floor, the walls, our hands, you name it. And since we use our hands kind of a lot, we can transfer spores to anything we touch, creating a bacterial reservoir. One way or the other, whether we're eating food or we're just putting our hands on our mouths for whatever reason, spores get into our mouths, travel down our throats, survive the stomach acid, get into our intestines, and since the environment is just right, then we start feeling down in the dumps. People most at risk for C. diff are the elderly, because oftentimes their immune systems are slowing down, or the microbiota in their gut are going to be out of balance either due to age or due to diet. Another problem is that they tend to spend a lot more time in healthcare facilities than anyone else, and that's the problem. C. diff is a very notorious nosocomial infection. That's an infection that happens inside of hospitals, which sadly makes sense. If you have C. diff or anything else, you go to a hospital. So if you're in the hospital with C. diff and you have these occurrences, there's a chance of spores being spread. Medical personnel do everything they can to keep C. diff contained, but nobody can be 100% perfect 100% of the time. And sooner or later, someone's gonna have an accident. The most important advice to avoiding contracting C. diff is simply washing your hands. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell adults this, but I'm going to anyway. Wash your damn hands, especially when you're in a hospital after you've visited anyone or touched anything. And if you're at the hospital visiting somebody with C. diff, talk to the nurse or somebody about contact precautions. Contact precautions include gloves and a gown to make sure all those pesky spores stay off of you. You put on the gown and the gloves before you go in, you take them off before you come out, and then you still wash your damn hands. Because even though C. diff isn't hereditary, it can still run in your genes. Thanks for watching! And of course, this involves a stool sample because, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. I forgot my pudding. I need pudding. Pudding.